And now we'll go to our reporter, Philip Crowther, who's actually on the ground in Milwaukee, where in 24 hours, the Republican National Committee will hold their annual convention where they will officially nominate Donald Trump as the Republican nominee for the party. Philip, thanks so much for being with us. Give us a sense of what's happening and what you're hearing on the ground.
Well, look, there's no particular sense of nervousness really here. We haven't seen an uptick in the security presence here, really. This is considered a very secure space for this upcoming week. The Secret Service, which of course is under significant pressure now after what clearly must have been a failing at the Trump rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. They are the ones largely organizing the security part of this event. But essentially what we've heard over the last few days is organizers and local officials trying to give assurances that everything here will be happening as planned. The mayor of Milwaukee has said everything will happen as planned, as has Reince Priebus. He's a very important member of the organizing committee here for the Republican National Convention. So essentially we do expect the former president, Donald Trump, to appear here at some point, not necessarily as soon as the convention starts on Monday. We don't have his planning as yet, but he is expected on stage here throughout the convention, as are many members of his family. We don't think his schedule is going to change really significantly. Now, other politicians' schedules have, of course, changed. U.S. President Joe Biden, for example, came back to Washington, D.C. from his holiday home on Rehoboth Beach in Delaware earlier than planned. We now also know that Vice President Kamala Harris will not be going on Tuesday to Florida for a campaign event. So you're seeing already impacts on the U.S. presidential campaign. But I think the bigger question here for this Republican National Convention over this week is not necessarily whether the organization or the security here will change. It's more about the tone. How will those who will be on stage here change their tone or adapt their tone to what has just happened? Will there be a more unifying message, if you will, which is essentially what we've heard from the Trump camp, from the former president himself, from former First Lady Melania Trump as well today? We'll have to wait and see what the tone of this convention truly is going to be.
And Philip, we already have the rundown of the speakers that are going to address the convention this week. And we know that some of the people that will be there, of course, will have very caustic messages or have in the past. Do we know if there's any plan by the convention or the convention organizers to perhaps reshape the platform, or who will be speaking to actually give a message of assurance that political violence is not the answer? Or are we going to see very much the convention stick to what they've already outlined, even though this assassination attempt has already occurred?
Look, I think there's no escaping the fact that there was an assassination attempt that's being investigated right now by the FBI on the former president and the current nominee for the Republican Party. His nomination will be made official here during this Republican National Convention. So that is not a subject matter that can be escaped here on stage or among the delegates. So it is going to be an important subject matter. Yes, it is up to those on stage, to the organizers now, to decide how important they will make this. Will they talk about political violence at length? Will they, as some members of Congress did in the immediate aftermath of this assassination attempt, talk about inflamed rhetoric from the Biden camp? In fact, we've seen that kind of language being toned down, in fact, over the last few hours. There is no clarity right now, and this is crucial, as to the motive of the suspect. Was this actually political violence? Of course, an assassination attempt is being investigated, but was this for political reasons? We simply don't know that right now. We don't know the political leanings of this suspect, whether there was any kind of a manifesto is something that one usually looks for, any notes that might have been left behind. There is no information on that right now. But you're absolutely right to ask that question. How are things going to be influenced here on stage? I think it's very, very likely, of course, that the former president will talk about this, about how he survived an attempt on his life at a campaign rally. There is no way around this. And the same, of course, will go for his family members, most of whom we expect to be here in Milwaukee over the next few days.
And another question, there was speculation that Donald Trump may have been prepared to actually unveil his vice presidential running mate at that rally in Pennsylvania yesterday. Do we know any more details about this pick from Donald Trump. And I know we're expected to at some point hear and learn more about who this person is in Milwaukee, but what are you hearing and what are your sources telling you about what we should know or what we may know about who this person might be?
Well, I think we can say for sure it's going to be happening here. This is where we will find out who the vice presidential pick is going to be for Donald Trump for this 2024 presidential election. Yes, he did put out a fundraising email just before the rally in Pennsylvania where he said that something important was going to be announced on stage. We don't know whether that was going to be his vice presidential pick. As far as we can gather, none of those potential picks were actually in attendance. So this might have been just Donald Trump doing his usual showmanship, which of course he's so good at announcing something to come, but then it takes a few days for it actually to happen. So maybe the announcement of a vice presidential pick will come in the later stages of this Republican convention. We know who the candidates are. There's J.D. Vance, of course, the senator from Ohio. There are others who are also being talked about, Marco Rubio, the senator from Florida as well. And they are all expected here. We do believe that that announcement will be made here on stage. We don't know yet at what point. But essentially that was going to be the big story, really, in the build-up to this convention, along with, of course, the doubts over President Joe Biden's candidacy. All of that, of course, now overshadowed by what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania yesterday.
And finally, Philip, we know that the biggest reason that the convention is actually taking place in Milwaukee is that Wisconsin is a battleground state. What's your sense, or what are you hearing from some of those politicians who will be attending this convention, that in the wake of this assassination attempt, that we're seeing perhaps an uptick or greater support in the state of Wisconsin for Donald Trump? And how is the state of Wisconsin actually looking to Milwaukee now in light of what just took place just yesterday?
Well, look, there's a reason why this convention is being staged in Milwaukee. This is absolutely a swing state in this presidential election, and of course it was a very tight contest 4 years ago. There will be a lot of people coming in here from the surrounding area here in Wisconsin who, of course, are Donald Trump supporters, but the ones who need to be convinced are those who would consider themselves independent, who still haven't chosen which one of these two candidates they might be voting for, maybe choosing which one they dislike the least, because remember that these are two pretty unpopular candidates, generally speaking. I think this is going to be a very important convention, as they all are, because they usually lead to a bit of an uptick in the polls for whichever candidate officially gets the nomination on stage. That is going to happen for Donald Trump, undoubtedly, here in Milwaukee. And of course, the backdrop to this is the assassination attempt on him. I think what we're feeling and seeing right now is a lot of politicians shying away from more violent political rhetoric right now. There were some yesterday in the immediate aftermath of the shooting who were talking about this possibly being motivated by the rhetoric of Joe Biden or the Democratic Party. We're not seeing a lot of that mentioned right now. So there is clearly a call from high up in the Republican Party and from the Donald Trump campaign to try and send out a message of unity right now. We'll, of course, have to wait and see how long that lasts. We have seen those kinds of plans from Donald Trump in the past for then the rhetoric to become pretty divisive again.
Okay, great. Thanks, Philip, for that excellent reporting, and do stay safe while you're there in Milwaukee. That's Philip Crowther, our reporter who's actually on the ground at the Republican convention in Milwaukee, which is scheduled to start in just 24 hours.
Across continents, one powerful news source.
Bringing you diverse perspectives on the issues that matter.
We go beyond the boundaries to give you that little extra about every sporting moment.
So thank you for making First Post 5 million strong. We're counting on your support, and you can trust us to bring you the news unfiltered and unvarnished.
Climate change is on our doorstep. It's time for a revolution to take root. And it starts with 1.4 billion Indians. It starts with one tree for humanity, one tree for Mother Earth, one tree for our future. Project One Tree, a News 18 network initiative.
On the show today, the T20 World Cup bandwagon has moved across to the West Indies. What can you expect from this?
Hello, I'm Alison Green, coming to you from Durban, South Africa. Today we have a special show.
Start with a report on India's shifting nuclear posture. For the first time since India officially became a nuclear power.
Hello and welcome to First Post America. I'm Aaron Ham, coming to you live from the nation's capital.